Hello and welcome back to In Pursuit of. My guest today is Mainak, co-founder of Simple Education Foundation. And he is in pursuit of a world where every child has a loving, caring, intuitive, and skilled teacher. Welcome back, Mainak.
Thank you.
You know, the NEP, right, and has a goal of, say, a GER of 50% by 2035. But, you know, there's a shortage of teachers. But I'd like to understand this from you. You know, we're really far away from the goal right now.
Yes. The current GER is in the
28, 25, something percent.
The challenge is that not a lot of our children are graduating to college. So GER measures, percentage of children in college as opposed to the population of that age group.
Okay.
So not a lot of our children or college-aged children are going to college. And the core reason is that they do not have the skills to access higher education. And that is because they do not, their foundational learning skills that they should have learned when they were in a second grade, a fifth grade, an eighth grade, or a 10th grade, those are skills that they don't have. Even recently, ASR's Beyond Basics report that came out paints a very dismal picture of India's youth. And that is why working with teachers in school classrooms, teachers who are really shaping up the next generation of college goers, we need to make sure that they have the tools to enable these children.
Right. But if teachers are not coming into the profession or, you know, even taking up government jobs as teachers, then how is it going to happen? I believe the shortage is so bad that schools without teachers at the moment.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Shortage of teachers in India is a reality. How this changes is if we make teaching aspirational. Still, many women will sort of take up that path because, unfortunately, the patriarchal society that we live in consider that as a job that you can continue to do while taking care of the family. But again, teachers who do the rigorous work inside classroom need more time, and not a lot of people are coming to teach. And for that, we need to have role models in the classroom. You want to be a cricketer because you see Virat Kohli.
Absolutely.
You want to be an engineer because you see Mark Zuckerberg. So how do you make that happen for our teachers? We need to really celebrate our teachers. And for that, the first step is we need to have teachers in classrooms who are role model worthy. And we have many of them. We have many of them already. We just need to bring them up. We need to celebrate them more. And we need to ensure that more and more children have access to teachers like that.
I agree with that. At the same time, I think maybe it's also changed a lot. I mean, at least in the private schooling, this thing like, you know, how teachers are viewed has also changed. In the government schools, what we all hear is that teachers are not motivated, right? The teachers just come there and like, they're not there for the passion of teaching, but more because it's considered, acha, you can do this work.
The truth is actually far from what the narrative is. There are, again, enough and more passionate teachers in government schools. But the people who have the mic or seat in the table where this narrative is built, none of their children go to government schools. That is an image of government schools that they've made from, stories of some teachers that they have heard. So that's not true at all. I have seen and met government teachers across the length and breadth of this country who have dedicated more than 40, 50 years of their life in the profession. And they are still extremely passionate. Now, one thing which again aids this narrative is, this piece that teachers have a lot of work apart from teaching. There are administrative duties, there are election duties, there are census duties, there are Right to Information Act duties, a lot of these duties that teachers have to sort of take care of, which leaves them with very little time to do the real teaching.
That's
right.
True.
So that's one piece. And that is where I think we need to have some policy level shift. And right now we are seeing a lot of state governments actively hiring administrative officers for their schools, where teachers now don't have to do a lot of the admin work anymore.
I went to Jharkhand and I was in a Naxal belt, and the principals over there actually told me, they said that for land rights, they are actually chasing the
Yeah.
children's parents for the land deed. They were not allowed to do XYZ till they finished it. So they were like stuck with this duty. And that to me that's really unfair. These teachers seemed quite helpless actually. But I mean, to me, that was a revelation, right? I mean, after going all the way to Jharkhand and discovering this.
That the narrative around teachers is so sort of focused on teachers that it fails to see the strings that are pulling them, the challenges that they're facing. It just is focused on their and their actions alone. The other part of the narrative is also, like, again, like I said, right, people who are building the narrative. If you look at the larger good education narrative today is entirely a good infrastructure narrative. Like a good private school is one where you have a playground, you have a horse riding thing, you have swimming pool, you have air conditioned buses, and then in some corner they will say international curriculum. How will our government school teachers ever compete with that narrative? Even if the pedagogy is solid, even if they show up to classroom every day, teach their children.
The other thing that people are looking for is Cambridge and IB, like anything that is away from the traditional.
Yeah.
Right. So how does that narrative add up? I'm a bit confused. But because obviously government schools can't go to that.
Again, I think, see, the thing over here is that the traditional, there's no problem with the curriculum. If you read the National Curriculum Framework, it is one of the most well written documents. The challenge is that the way the curriculum framework has sort of manifested inside our schools is not an exact representation of what it is sort of written, right? And that is where Sarkari education is not good. That narrative sort of emerges. It's because the infrastructure around good education, like, it's like if you have a pressure cooker and I have a toaster and we both have to make toast, then I'll obviously make better toast than you. It is not dependent on whether you knew how to make toast or not. It is just because you did not have a better equipment.
When you're saying infrastructure, it goes back to it's not the infrastructure really, but I mean, when you're saying infrastructure, are you talking about the tools that teachers use?
Exactly. The tools, the training, the kind of back-end support that you need, the kind of classroom sizes that we need, all of those things add up, right? And all of this is a possibility. But right now, again, the other challenge is that in our country, the amount of voice you have is directly proportional to your socioeconomic background, right?
Unfortunately.
And children who go to government schools, they don't come from a place where their parents have that voice, right? So again, the accountability bit there is something that needs to be worked on. So I think there are small pieces that needs to be fixed, and there is a lot of hope, and we have to be hopeful of the government system. 70% of India's children go to government systems. And actually, the schools that we often talk about as good schools or like schools which are amazing, less than 5% children go to those schools.
The reality is that those 70% children really are not, they don't get jobs. So that's why I think, so the narrative has also shaped because that's happening, right?
I agree with that. We cannot deny the numbers. We cannot deny the truth that government schools are not sort of providing the education that they should provide. But that alone is not enough to say that, teachers are incapable, that teachers are not motivated. There is parent engagement. It is a larger sort of societal conversation. Most of the children who come to government schools are first generation learners, right? And they don't have that support back at home. That is where, again, with patient long term capital, those are things that can be invested on. That is where we need more, organizations working on that. Most research is funded through a lot of philanthropy, right? Foundations and this and that. Again, in India, we have a dearth of that kind of funding, which is why research is not happening. So everything is very sort of,
like
intertwined.
By trying it out, you discover it.
For anyone who says that government teachers don't work, I would like to invite them to come and see and talk to the government teachers, be inside the classroom for a day. I can guarantee you that their perspectives will switch.
How have you transformed in these 8-10 years that you've been doing this?
This has definitely been a personal journey as much as it has been a journey of building an organization. I think it has made me more empathetic. I don't take things for face value. I want to dig deeper. I want to actually give everyone a second chance. Even when I feel I know something, I'm more open to learning. I think those are shifts that has happened inside me. And the other shift that has happened is I think I am able to see interconnections better, and I'm able to see how um, the larger narrative of society is driven by capital, and how that is very detrimental for the society. The beauty in a story is that it is complex, but we all want to read simple stories. And I think that's the problem that has happened with the development sector also. The challenge is that the problem is complex, but we want 8-word mission statements, and we want single outcome organizations who will be focused. And that's where, the whole game goes haywire.
We also, other than the teacher narrative, we also compare our schools to US mates like this, and in Finland they have the best education. Where do we really stand, in versus other countries?
We are definitely not where we should be or where we would like to be. But also, let me put this in context. Like, if you look at the PISA scores and everything, we are far behind for sure. But let me put this in context. First thing to look at over here in these examples is the size of the countries. So, change is much faster. Like, when you want to change, the hand wash in your own washroom at home versus the hand wash in the office, both take different amount of time. That is because the decision making, people who will be impacted, all of that. So that's definitely one point. But the second point is also, actually, if you look at Finland started the policy level change in the mid 60s. Right?
Seriously.
Exactly. So it's taken them about 50 years to reach where they are today. And in India, the Right to Education Act came out about a decade or so ago. Right? So we still have a longer sort of path to move. But I am very hopeful. When I started my journey in education, we weren't talking about mental health for children. We weren't even talking about mental health. But today, that is a conversation, that is a real conversation everywhere. And that is a proof point for me that is telling me that things are changing. Governments are more willing to work with nonprofits like us. They are accepting that they need support to build world-class education systems. We are definitely far from where we want to be.
That's really heartening to hear, honestly. From somebody who's working in the sector and who's saying that he's hopeful, it's really, really heartening to hear that. What is that one thing you would want that should change in the social sector, the development sector landscape of India?
I think the first thing is embracing the fact that this is a complex problem. And while you can have a simple solution to the complex problem, but the first step to that is embracing the fact that it is complex. A lot of private equity, venture capital styled philanthropy that we have access to, we are trying to solve problems to show return on investment. And then we really reduce the problem to a problem statement. And then we are solving for the statement and not for the problem anymore. So we have to have that collective voice. The development sector definitely lacks that.
But why does it lack it?
It lacks because, in my opinion, I think we are all also trying to sustain at the end of the day, which then means that we are looking at the same sources of capital, same sources of talent, same sources of partnership. And once you are in that loop, it is but natural that a sense of competition will come in. Corporate companies, and they come in with the same principles, and they want to solve the social challenge with the same principle. But deciding that you should have a shampoo sachet, and deciding that making a kit that a child can take home to study science is not the same thing. They're very, very different. While the framework of solving the problem might be the same, but the solutions have to be very, very different. So we need to look at different frameworks for the development sector and solve problems with that framework. And those are things that are unfortunately not happening. And there is this big push to listen to people who are from corporates, to build the organization in a more corporate style, and a lot of those things. There's a lot of value in it, right? I have learned half of how to build culture from corporates, from reading Zappos work, reading about Netflix. But that does not mean that everything that's
It can just be
there.
copied.
Exactly.
Interesting. This conversation can go on. And I could actually sit and chat with you for another hour. Seriously. So it was really, really engaging and very enjoyable, Mainak.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And on that note, until next time, keep watching In Pursuit of.